Well, it's probably the only way you can learn something.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's just about it's just about being curious, and if you're not curious, you'll never learn something. And you just have to be. If you're curious, well, you want to participate, you want to do things. So it's really, I think it's a really normal way of learning.
So you kind of say that participation is the main process of do-it-yourself education.
It can be participation, real life participation. It can be just the ability of a group of students for organizing the way they will live in a studio for a year, how they will organize the space, who will do what. It can be making really real life things with your hands. There's a lot of options to do it yourself design approaches. It's not a closed thing. It's really open.
Well, I can talk about it because I was educated in Italy, in Rome at La Sapienza, and then I went through these Erasmus programs elsewhere in Spain, where the education was much better. And so, if in Italy we had a sort of very good theory education, like history of urbanism, etc., but we had very bad conditions of 500 students with a critic for projects and things like that. That's why I went away. And now I'm teaching at Ivy League schools, so it's the very opposite. You're critiquing, you have 8 or 10 students, so it's very, very good conditions. So in a way, I know the do-it-yourself for myself, because through the years, and I'm still doing the do-it-yourself, you start traveling and meeting people and stop being shy and sort of introduce yourself to offices or visit things, and it's things that in very good schools you got all these possibilities and opportunities are given to you, but sometimes you might give them for granted and so not really not really use them. So I guess again there's a balance. It's good to have these opportunities given, and it's good to be very, very curious. But this is something you are as a student, and then you have to be curious all through your life. I think to come across things. To be open.
For me, do-it-yourself education is students, in this case, showing independence, showing initiative, showing that they understand what they are studying, showing that they understand profession, that they understand what the issues, what are the future challenges, are there enough jobs, how to do projects, how to communicate. So they have to know the whole context, and it's impossible to teach it in a university curriculum. So they on their own, they have to identify the threats they see for themselves, the issues, and educate themselves additionally, and for example fill those gaps they feel they have. So a university curriculum cannot be like a cure for everything. So the student has to be aware of his own problems or cons, and try to cover it, try to fill the hole.
Do it yourself is that, just what I said. Then the question is authorization. Are you able to build your house? In here, usually no, because you need to have an architect, to have a permit in order to build. So DIY has to progress, so people get more skills, and also with internet you can learn, and with communities you can learn how to do, and you can have access to tools which make possible to do it yourself. So I think with all the new technologies, it's becoming more and more. The problem is that the capitalism, the politics, the power is making do it yourself little, but also the world of ID communication make all the people having access to the information, and so it's possible. So we are, I think, in a very big contradiction that we have to deal in the 20 years coming. Are we able to do it yourself, or are we not? Do we have the right to do it, or do we?
Yeah, so in terms of this, observing your design, it's kind of inevitable to ask this question. Like, do you think by this means of educating people to build their own houses, you put this profession of architect in jeopardy as a scientist?
Yeah, to accompany, to valorize and to legitimize this DIY. We have to be, I didn't find the word, but chef d'orchestre. It's like when you have musicians, you have to be able to make possible so people play together. Because the city is like a big piece of music that we have to play and enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Self-education, I mean, it's like self-responsibility for sure, and it's a really good luck that our generation have by the internet. You know, if you want to learn something, you just have to Google it, and you're going to find a tutorial to produce what you want. And it starts by the softwares, but now it's going more and more to the hardware. And I mean, our responsibility is to share our knowledge with others, to share our experience with others, and my position is I would love to introduce more and more scale 1-1 opportunity to build stuff with the students, and that I think what more and more schools are going to develop, and more independent movement from schools from different countries are going to develop. So I'm really positive and optimistic in this way, and I think it starts when you're kids, and if you start, I have a young boy, and you know, every day he's learning something else, and he's learning by himself to learn to do stuff. So you just keep the feeling to learn, to play out, how to say, yeah, you just have to keep the feeling to play when you're learning, and to continue to play when you teach something too. So that's it.
The way I would understand your question yourself is like how you experiment with your own hands, the things that you want to develop at a higher dimension later. And I would say like making a garden is maybe the most important thing you can do at the same time when you're a kid, and at the same time when you're like an old guy. Even if you're an old guy and you have worked in a factory all your life, sometimes it's the best way you can end up your life is like making a garden. And also at the same time, if you were a great philosopher and you get tired of everything and of clothes complicated like this, in the same time the thing that you would want to do for yourself and for the people you like in the future would be to make a garden. We are very inspired by this garden aspect.
Yeah. I think it's a rule of all now, and I think it's a solution to fast architecture, and to find another question of how to do it yourself. But that's very interesting about it, and that's how it goes to the limit of the boundaries of architecture without architect to architecture with architect, and from that we architects are on the edge, and we can just give methodology, like strategy, like you can do it like this or like that, and just disappear and not being okay, let's do something heavy and that way and that way. That brings more flexibility to architecture.
What I'm trying to teach is make the student being the owner of his ideas, and being able to express them like I wasn't there. I'm not there to, I think you mentioned this during our previous conversation, but we are not, even if our title is professor or educator, we are there to accompany the student and maybe guide them, rather than tell them this is architecture is like this and not like this. It's more we are more like guides. And to come back to the DIY aspect, I think schools are necessary. It's impossible to learn the basics of architecture without going to a space where you meet other students, where you can exchange physically.
Yes, so to follow this idea, I think there's a contradiction in do-it-yourself education and the fact that there are schools, which is quite interesting. I think there was some experiment at ESA about autonomous atelier, so autonomous courses with the students could decide what they will work on, and so they just had teachers following in the end to see the results, and it was quite interesting in terms of experience. But there was still a framework, and I think this is where school is important, is to build a framework in which the student will be able to explore the idea they want to explore. So I think as a teacher, our job is to be a bit like a myotic maybe of Platon, which is just to helping the students to understand what kind of architect they want to become.